G'day everyone, how's it going? We're going live. Thought I'd give this one another crack. All Things Bulldogs, episode 32. Lots of discussion. Thought I'd give this one another crack. Sorry about that. I had myself coming through on the mobile phone. Couple of us online. I'll wait a couple of seconds. Not expecting to get too many people tonight. Big disappointment losing on Friday night. Every loss is a disappointment. But in saying that, 12-6, I think we should look at the stats. We'll go through some players stuff. We're going to look at what I believe the plan is, what I think's happening with the young guns, what I think the team will be as we round off. Oh, sorry, I don't even know what I'm saying. As we work our way in to round one against Parramatta at 4 p.m. at Bankwest. Our competition will be unearthed who that winner will be, and you'll be able to win some good merch, which I showed last week. I think our attack isn't too bad. Perspective's everything. You know, watching all the games, though, I saw some really good stuff from other teams as well on much better tracks. I think if Canterbury and the Sharks play at Fiji, I think both sides score quite a few more points. Very interested to see how the Storm went. I think that they played well. I think Parramatta played really well in their first trial as well. They threw the ball around a lot. I think there was the emphasis in Fiji to throw the ball around and give the fans a really good show. But, yeah, no one was afraid to offload and do all that sort of stuff. 100 grand is up for grabs. And those bloody Broncos won the $100,000. So they had two big wins. And their youngsters smashed the Manly youngsters on the weekend after being down 10-0. I actually was watching them train. I had some deliveries out at Broncos. I was back there again today. No one there today, but that team was training hard last Friday. Or Thursday or Friday it was. And some really good up-and-comers, and that big man beast, I think his name's Brendan Takura or something. The Dogs need to get hold of him quick, smart. All right, let's get into it. I'll bring the stats up. All right, so we've got that up there. 12-6 we're down. The stats, obviously we had 49% possession to 51%. Time in the possession, they had probably, half a set more in the end. Their completion rate was very poor at 71. Ours was diabolical at 65. I think ours was 58% in the first half. We actually improved it a bit in the second half, but they made a few errors chasing the points late, which you can't blame them for. We ended up having 231 runs, made more meters, but obviously average, when you average that out, runs per hit up or meters per hit up, we weren't as effective. And you just had to look at the size of the two packs and understand why. I felt our back five contributed pretty well in the meters space, especially, Eli Clark was fantastic. Bronson Cherry did really well. For all us who have been saying that he's likely to need time, well, he's getting some pretty quick miles into his legs, handling the contact and doing some pretty good stuff. He he had to sort of stop and wait for that pass from Addo Carr. I watched it a few times, slowly stopped on his run to get the ball after that great Burton grubber. That was a really good highlight to see that. And it would have been great for him to score against his old club, and I think we could have went on and done something. Post-contact it's a stat we find hard to win, let alone win the match. And the Sharks side, they weren't. The post contact throughout the whole contest was pretty even. When they scored their first try, their 2 sets after that, they made 60 metres. And that's the problem for the Dogs. That's one of the issues we've got to really fix up. Over the whole game, though, I felt that we had some people rushing in to slow players down, which is a Penrith tactic they use, especially on the edges. You had small men coming out of the line, Hayward putting his body on the line, both the halves on either side. You had the centres coming in. You had Marnie doing it as he usually does. But after that, I felt the forwards really coming in numbers as often as they could, and there was a commitment to get the guy on the ground. Still too much post contact. We have to improve it. There's no doubt about it if we're going to do anything in this comp. Line breaks only 2. So when you see this stat down here of where's the 55 missed tackles? There we go. 55 missed tackles, but to concede only 2 line breaks probably tells you that, it does tell you that the scramble was good, and it does tell you that we were definitely trying to, people getting in their face, putting pressure on. And watching the game again, the whole team was constantly moving. I felt our worst period was after they scored. Pawasa from Farmacelli, who I did the player watch on last week, he effectively struggled quite a bit. He got hit hard on one of his first runs, and I noticed it just took the wind out of him. Then he knocked the ball on the next hit up when we were in really good position, and he tried to make up for it. I think he's got some good stuff about him, but coming up against that Sharks pack, he sort of was found wanting a little bit. I felt he really did try his heart out in that second half though, and in the pace of the game, he seemed to warm into it. But for that period, from the time they scored, the next few sets, Pawasa really struggled, and Josh Curran come onto the field. And Josh only played the next 25 minutes. Turns out he had a virus, and he literally made over 100 metres and a shitload of tackles, 25 tackles or something, and was everywhere. Made a real important tackle at the end when on our try line of that first half, which I swear it looked like they were going to score. But he's someone I'm so glad we got at the club. Sam Hughes, he come on, I think, after about 25 minutes, replaced Max King, and was looking likely. Got a bit of a head clash there, I think, with Hazelton, and I think it did affect him a bit, but he still got through his work and did his job. And the fact we only had those players for 25 minutes for Curran, 15 for Hughes. The Sharks team rotated Toby Rudolph, Kafusi, Royce Hunt, Hazelton. They kept Nakora on for quite a bit, but they had Williams play really good, Teague Wilton. They all played long minutes. They get good service out of their workhorses like McGuinness. He takes a lot of carries and does pretty well, but at the same time, he's always tackling everything as well. Made a few mistakes. But look, it says here on the stats, and actually it is backed up. Average set distance 40.3 meters. We had a couple of really good runs. Kick return meters, slightly less than what the Sharks had, and they beat us in the play the ball. So, look, their forward pack being bigger, more seasoned, more experienced, just essentially won that battle. But I think if those two players that didn't, in Curran and Hughes, if they play the normal minutes that they're supposed to play, I think that stat evens up. I think post-contact evens up a little bit as well. And I think we get more opportunities to score. We pass the ball a lot more, because we want to go left to right. It was in a stop-start affair with so many drop balls, your halves just don't have. This is what I don't get about the Braith and Astors of the world, right? they can clearly see that there's constant errors, constant mistakes, that it's, a breezy sort of surface. You've got a gale force wind. There's teams were just constantly defending through the middle and playing through the middle. Dummy half, Sharks had some good dummy half runs. We needed probably a few more of those, to be honest. That's something that Marnie and Hayward could have looked at. And possibly the centres could have done a bit more. There's a lot of the one-out passing stuff that we're used to, but that was just the nature of the game. That was the type of game that was playing. When you're knocking the ball on, your halves, when they're sort of getting ready to set things up and have cracks at the opposition, just weren't getting the chance to do it. So I really, it makes me sort of wonder, what game are people fucking watching? It really riles me up. Like, how many attacking sets do you get when your team holds the ball? A lot many. And that's when you talk about your attack and whether it was struggling or not. Yeah, we got them down to 10 players. I agreed with Cooper Cronk and that at the time, that they needed to go left a little bit more. They needed to play the numbers. You got 13 versus 10 every time you got the ball. Yeah, and then when it's 13 versus 9, when they're down a player, because, you've got your two markers who sit out, and then you've got the fullback behind the line. To break that line, you really should be, if you play the numbers right and everyone can do their job, you should be able to get more line breaks than what occurred. And I have no doubt if the Broncos or Souths or Penrith or Parra were playing the Sharks in that situation, they probably would have got a few more points. So we are still clunky. There's no escaping that. You're going to sit there and bring in a new fullback and a new halfback. It's just the nature of the beast. So we'll talk about Hutchison and Sexton. We'll talk about Taff. And I'll try and talk about the juniors coming through as well. And just a warning, we can keep demanding kids to be put into the first grade squad. Go back through social media for the last 5 years, or if you're speaking to people at the game or however you enjoy your footy and talk about your footy, it's the same thing. So-and-so in reserve grade's killing it. We need to put them in. It's always been the way. Eventually they get their chance. And how long does it take before the fans then turn on them or just say the coach is shit? Because, that's another thing too. We'll look through the player stats. So let's have a quick look at that. Marnie, 39. Cameron McGuinness, as I stated, 43. Royce Hunt, big meters. Our guys are running it out from the back and doing a lot of the work. It's the Penrith style of play. Like, the Bulldogs spin on it means we're always going to be up and in defence. And it was really good to see Stephen Crichton nail the fullback. Haven't seen that enough from our centres in recent years. The intention's always been there as a Canterbury. That's Canterbury football. Like, I know all teams can do it, but that's what we want to see from our centres. And I think Bronson Cherry has that ability to do that as well. Either side of the field, it looks, which is fantastic. Drew made a line break and then stuffed the pass, but he still made the break. Like, for me, it was a good ball that he got. Definitely a good ball, I think, from Salmon. But he took advantage of it. Sorry, but Kyle Flanagan wouldn't have got that through that hole. He would have thrown the pass straight away and not taken advantage of the space, which was his issue. Drew cops it in the back. Sounds good, doesn't it, when I say that? These players engage the line. Toby Sexton engages the line. I've got no issues with Toby or Drew, the way that they play in that regard. Salmon engages the line. Burton engages the line. They're all doing what they've got to do. They keep practicing it. They keep working together. The points will come. Teague Wilton shouldn't have scored a try. If you watch the lead up to that, Hutchison and that whole back line, all running out together, running forward. I think Sharks could see that. And then they waited for the opportunity, which was just really good play. Very smart hooker. And, Pawasa was tired. He was running out of breath, and he just had nothing there to sort of get up and shut that down. And we can blame Hutchison all we like, but to me, it looks like there was one player there putting his trust in his forward beside him. And that's what a good team does. They trust each other to get the job done. If Hutchison hangs back, right, and starts having to cover for the people inside, and that's the same with any player. We've seen that at Canterbury for the last 5 years. Players not trusting each other, not trusting the process at all, falling into habits where they're trying to cover each other and protect each other. And what ends up happening is the space and the numbers just get exploited, and we just concede edge points. I haven't seen too many edge breakdowns in those two first trials, which is a really bloody good thing. So let's look at the stats for the Bulldogs. And it doesn't look like they've got... That's ridiculous. They've all disappeared, the actual team stats. They were there, the player stats, but now they're no longer there. They're probably on zero tackle or someone like that. One thing I'll say, it's really concerning that already we're seeing fans scapegoat players and say, oh, this player's bloody shit. And I get it. But at the same time, like, we all have our favourites too. Now, Blake Wilson had some good touches, some good meters, some good footwork, and yardage runs were great. He had 4 errors as well, but not one mention of it because he's liked by the fan base. It seems I used to see that with Carraz. Everyone knows that Carraz is probably in my top 3 players. Right? He averaged as many misreads in defence as anyone else in the team last year, but you don't hear about it. Right? It's the truth. We love the way he tries to make up for it, and we love all the work he does to put us on the front foot. But usually these moments, we get someone and they become an obsession and a focal point where people constantly just focus on their flaws. Matt Burton, his kicking was on point in that first half. He had one bomb which sort of dropped a bit short, but it held him up enough and we got there. He got a repeat set from a long way out. That grubber which nearly set up that try, and his bombs were landed on point, controlled right on the in-goal line so that we could keep them in their end. And we were playing the games properly. The issue is that we had Blake Wilson, Farmer silly dropped the ball in a really bad spot, in attack when we're just setting things up. We had Blake Wilson knock the ball on near the halfway line about 3 times. Now, I think 2 of those occasions should have been penalties to us. And even the one he challenged, I think that was bullshit. The players got their hand all over the friggin' ball. I felt that was absolute bullshit, and we should have been rewarded a penalty. They paid us one back maybe when Wilson actually touched the ball and it went out, but they said that the Sharks threw it out. But the point I'm making is that it seems some players can't do any wrong, yet everyone else is a scapegoat. Blake Taff, there was 2, he probably went too hard into one catch in the second half, knocked that on. I won't, have an issue with that. The one where they got the 40-20, to even the fact that he got his hand on the ball was pretty good. And then you've got that one which there was no pressure. dropped it on the try line. To me, the ball went backwards. In the old days, it's a blatant knock on, but it literally goes backwards. So it wasn't even a knock on. But they call it a knock on. You shouldn't drop the ball in that situation. If he keeps doing that, well, you have to go to Reggie's. If you're dropping those easy ones, puts us under too much pressure. But it's the same with the wingers. They have to hold the ball and play the ball correctly. Or there's too much competition now for them not to get it. It's the same with Hutchison. And that's who we're going to talk about now. Drew Hutchison made a line break. It was a good pass. He took advantage of it. I think Toby would have potentially... I think he plays heads up enough that he would have taken that hole as well. Toby, to me, is the future. Toby, to me, is the halfback that at the end of the season, barring injury, will be playing and be a part of our best 17 moving to the business end of the season. That's if he keeps his attitude in check, doesn't drop, doesn't throw his wallies for not getting picked and all that sort of stuff. Because that's some of the stuff that's been in our culture, which is why we've sucked. And I look at what happened with Remus Smith. I look at what happened. I look at what happened with numerous players in the past that have left our club. Alamotti, Remus, and a few others. They were basically making demands of our club, right? And it's not the right thing to do. But that happens when your team's not performing. Your youngsters start to demand more money to stay. So the club's drawn a line in the sand to say, if you're not fully in it, if you're not going to go with the plan, right? If you're not picked, you need to work harder, train harder, and zip your lip. And then when the coach comes and says you're going up to first grade this week, you take your opportunity when you get it. The issue is that we've had people flapping their trap when they haven't got picked. We've had people flapping their trap when, players have been bought from elsewhere to come to the club, hence Karl Oluwapu. It's these things. I get it. I get why people get upset when they're in good form in reserve grade and first grade sucking and they don't get picked. I get it. But the club needs them to just have the right attitude, just put their head down, work harder, and ensure that they do everything in reserve grade. And I think that's what our club needs to do, okay? They need to draw that line in the sand. We're always going to want players that should be in the team, in our own opinions, that aren't. But we're not the experts. So to be sitting there bitching constantly about it every time, I know the Dogfather, he's still ropeable that Jarrell Skelton's not in the side. He thinks Jarrell Skelton is like the best player to ever pull on the boots in rugby league. And I don't disagree with him to his face, but look, even Jarrell took a hit up in that second half and got absolutely smashed, right? I'll get to some of your chats in a moment because I've just actually seen them. They've come up. There's been a big delay with that, so that's pretty awesome. Thanks. Can't believe how many bloody messages are on there. So, anyway. Let's read some out. An issue at the moment remains a 7 who doesn't kick a footy. Well, he did all the kicking in the first game against the Storm. Burton hardly did it, and then Burton did it. And I'm glad Burton did it because there was some sets there where he got us out of trouble and kicked it from the 20 metres down to their 10 or something like that. That set that they had after points where they made 60 metres and then we only made like 20. So, yeah, I agree that they need. I definitely agree with Paulie. I agree with that point that you made. That Burton is setting up a kick late in every set and it takes him out of it for a bit. It makes us very one-dimensional if it's just Burton doing the kicking. Totally get it. And for me, Sexton is the long-term option because the right left foot kicker for me is the way it goes, right? And Toby can actually kick a footy. I'll direct everyone to Josh Reynolds' preview, one of the NRL previews, which goes over Toby Sexton and his strengths. That's definitely one of them. Burton should be looking at attack there instead of setting up for a kick. Yeah, I agree, but not everything's as it seems. Sometimes if there's a slow play, the ball, and they want to get into the grind, or we've sort of been conceding territory and they want to get things back. I hear our fans say this a lot. They've been saying that for years. Aiden Tolman on the fourth and then a kick. And then we set up for one shot at them off a slow play, the ball easily picked off. And then, we put it dead or they catch it on their falling goal or we drop the ball or whatever it is. I've been watching the same team. I've been watching the same team suck under different coaches. Dean Pay, bloody, what's his name, Barrett, even Mick Potter. It wasn't perfect under Mick Potter. He freed them up a bit and got them going and brought some youngsters in, which added a bit of energy. And they played a sort of a game which made it more of a high-scoring contest. Well, nice and physical and defended well. Ran well, didn't compete well. I can actually show you comments up on the bloody thing. I didn't know that. Brad Cambridge. G'day, Brad. 55 missed tackles again. No improvement from last year. Very piss poor defence. Serrato's coach saying to question him with boys at work. A lot of disappointed Doggy fans. Brad, mate, we need to put our dick in our pants for a little bit, man. It's round 2. It's not even round 2. It was the second trial, for fuck's sake. And we conceded 2 line breaks, right? That means the scramble's so much better. It was one of those games, and not all missed tackles are the fucking same. I say this so often. There's missed tackles in the line. There's misreads. There was games where we missed less tackles, but they had so many fucking misreads that they put 7 line breaks on us. If you don't get a hand on the player, it doesn't go down as a missed tackle. It's just a stat, and we can make the stat work for us or against us. There's no apologist here. The point of the fact is it's all got to be in context, right? When did the missed tackles happen and how did they happen? There was people who fell off tackles as 2 forwards were putting them on their ass and then did their job. And then the third players got up and got in the line and we've made the next one fine. It's all relative. His timing is still off. Well, I'd say that when you lose in the ruck like we were, your timing, I don't know who you're talking about. You're talking about Burton. You're talking about Hutchison. Scapegoating Burton every week is, to me, just playing into Fox Sports' hands. Because what I saw is that in that first half, he did his job completely. He's the 5'8", right? And he's still very young. And he's the best 5'8" in our club at this point of time. With the best weapons who can run. He engages the line. Look, when we start to see him humming, we'll see how the options go then. And hopefully he'll be fit enough and they'll combine well this season for Matt Burton to show his best more consistently. But right now, what other options are there? Hutcho didn't kick the footy to the second half. No, he didn't. The previous week, Burton only kicked a couple of times in the first half. So to me, it's about context and how the game's going. When we're doing it harder out of our own end, Burton's more likely to bloody put the kick in because we need to, get something up there. Plus, it was really windy as well. So on a windy day, that southerly going from towards the railway end, some of those kicks can really sort of cause the fullbacks a lot of headaches, and they didn't catch many. Mark O'Connell, let's look at this one. A and B defenders still an issue behind the ruck. Those two sets after they scored points, that's definitely the case. I felt for the majority of the rest of the game, it wasn't as bad as it's been, and it's still a definite issue that they've got to fix. I felt that we did that quite well against the Sharks as well at certain points, especially when Curran and that was on there. But yet again, context. Poasa and Curtis Morin aren't going to protect that. They're just not at that level where those two in the middle, as your two props, are going to get that done over half of football. Hopefully they can develop into that. Shorty Morin, I hope he gets to play in our 17 and gets to develop and continues to get to play. He's very good at getting in behind the A and B defender as a runner. So is Curran. And Sam Hughes has this really strong knack, no matter what situation he's in being able to generate a pretty good play the ball. Poasa, I feel he's a real man out there in defence. But you see, as soon as he's gassed, just like Pele, they make mistakes. They find it difficult to sort of, get to their man and do the job. I felt his second half was a lot better. But yeah, that's where we were exploited. As I said, the Sharks have a pack which I don't know how they can afford it, which I've talked about. With really good rotations equally. We couldn't rotate Curran or Sam Hughes due to a virus and due to he got a head knock. And they wanted to ensure he was all right. So it was good for Poasa because he got to get some, feel the heat out there and get some miles in his legs, which we need him to do. If he's going to play a part for us in the future and reach that potential that, I went through some of his stuff at the Roosters. They all thought he was going to be one of the next big things, and he just hasn't developed into it. So if he can contribute to us, improve, maybe we will see better defence of that ruck. But I felt it was a lot better when we had the likes of Hughes and Curran out there. Sometimes they hit our advantage line too quickly, but, and there was obviously the post-contact. But, I think there's better signs there. But it was just a bloody trial at the end of the day. Yeah, you're right, Paulie. Poasa got targeted and found out 100%. G'day, Pete Bulldogs. How you going, brother? I love your Instagram, mate. Hello, Mark. Paulie, I agree. Poasa off the bench. It's probably where they're going to go, but I think the idea is to get him out there and to be a bit of an enforcer against these big packs. I'm in sort of hindsight, maybe if Pele was used that way a little bit earlier, I was actually against it. But I know Pete said, Pete Weather once said, get him starting, get him burning, even if it's for 10 minutes, just to gas him out and get him going. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. And I still don't discount that Liam Knight it's not going to be too long before they bring him up and use him. Were you talking to me? Not sure, Mark. We did well against one of the strongest packs in the comp. We did all right. 100%, Paulie. 100%. I honestly believed they were going to run through us and run over us. And when after we gave away that first try in those next 2 sets, I was like, oh, here we go. But you know what? They bloody toughed it out a lot, and it was 6-all right until the end. Until, you know, poor Bailey Hayward throws a rubbish pass, which I saw 2 of the Burton threw one as well, slipped out of his hands. Marnie threw one that slipped out of his hands. It was the bloody conditions. The difference is Marnie and Burton aren't going to get, you know, no one's going to make excuses for them when they do it. But when the youngster does it, it's fine. But in a few weeks, if he comes up, you know, the fans will turn on him too. We just want to win, guys. We want to win games. We want to do well. We want the team to click. You know, if I'm a betting man, there's not many games that I'll be backing the Bulldogs this year. It's just a reality. And I fucking hope I'm wrong. It doesn't mean I've lost hope in the process. I know that those kids are going to be the players that win our next premiership. But they're not going to be able to do it this year. And if they get thrown in there now, they're going to lose confidence. And, you know, we won't see them progress. It's as simple as that. It's been happening for 5 years, yet people keep throwing the names up of kids to be brought into the team now, like they're ready. When they performed against Jersey Flegg and New South Wales Cup players in the first trial, I don't get it. I seriously don't. And that's not to one person. That's to all the people who talked about that, which is quite a few. Oh, g'day, Brad. God, you like to the doggies suck and Serrato sucks as a coach. I'm over him. Cool, man. No, ULA, no Finucane. That's right, Mark. They had Finucane, very experienced, tough player. But it shows you how good their forward pack is, doesn't it? You know, Kafusi's been toiling away at Parramatta and then pretty sure it was Parramatta, and then went to the Sharks. Been stuck behind the big boys. He went all right. You know, I think he made an error. A couple of good offloads. He's got some talent, that boy. Hazelton's been coming through over the last 2 years. So what I mean, this is the same team. These players were all in that team 3 years ago. Right? And the players that were in front of them were all good as well. That's what happens. They've got depth in their forward pack. And our club wants to have depth in our forward pack, but guess what? The great Bulldogs club that we got to witness growing up doesn't exist anymore. They're trying to repair it. They're trying to rebuild it. But it's not there anymore. If you're a young player coming through, if you're 23, 24 and about to hit years, you know, Payne Huss was never coming to the Bulldogs. Tino's not going to come to the Bulldogs. Adam Fanua-Blake, I reckon I know they were very close, but he's not a club first player. He's a mercenary. And they'd rather put a youngster in, you know, develop a youngster than take his spot. You know, they'd rather give it to someone for 150 grand a year than some has been, than pay him to come here and, you know, say that he wants to leave after 2 years again, which he's done 3 times already. Sorry, but what are we supposed to do? Paulie, the Sharks do have the most depth of any of the packs. And it's funny because you listen to Fox News and they talk about the Sharks pack hasn't stood up. I think they've had injuries. When they get ULA's had so many knee injuries. Hunt had injuries last year. Toby Rudolph's had injuries. When they get them all on the paddock and all in the team, they don't lose too many games. That's a fact. Yeah, Nico Hines would have definitely put us under a little bit more pressure. But I can tell you now, I don't think it would have been much different, to be honest. There wasn't too many holes for people to run at. And, you know, Nico Hines is going to be a very good player in about 3 years. He's very good now. He's going to be a very good player in about 3 years. We looked pedestrian when we had the footy. I felt both sides did. And it's not about the whataboutisms. What about the other team? It was just that type of game. We couldn't build pressure because we kept dropping the ball. Taft knocked it on 4 times. Wilson knocked it on 4 times or stuffed up to play the ball. We had Parra knock the ball on in a bad spot. We had, you know, a cramped up edge off a slow play the ball, yet they still ran the play because that's what trials are for, to trial your plays. And they took it to the line and gave, you know, Preston a hospital pass and he got smashed. Hutchison giving that pass. Hutchison off good shape, threw a bad pass into touch. Doesn't mean he's shit. Doesn't mean he can't play. It means he's had an off night. Taff had an off night in the second half. He looked all right in the first half. And by that second half when they're gassed in that sort of conditions, nothing was happening. The kids come on and couldn't do any better, to be honest. You know, they looked fresh and they looked willing, but the Sharks had them covered both edges. So it tells you a bit about the game. There's just some games that are like that. Marnie didn't look like running. Marnie was never a runner of the football. He ran the ball more at Canterbury than he ever did at Parramatta. Cameron Smith wasn't a big runner of the football. Just so you know. It's not the be-all end all. Jake Turpin doesn't run the football at all, pretty much. Not all hookers run the footy. Not everyone's Jeremy Marshall King. You know, we developed Jeremy Marshall for 3 years to get to where he got. Still dirty that he chose to leave. But he chose to leave. You don't drop the ball and play 1 or 2 helps. Bloody oath it does. Our team kept coughing up the ball. Yet the only people named on it were the fullback. And who else? I agree, Paulie. Burton can't be 7 and 6. That's why we need a halfback to free him up. Yeah, you're probably right about Sexton. And I'm going to tell you why I believe it's better to pick Hutchison now than Sexton. Because we've got some tough games to open the season. Now, this isn't a defeatist attitude, but the likelihood is that after 10 rounds, if things aren't going that well, it only took them 4 rounds last year to start attacking Flanagan, right? Four rounds. We were 2-2. We won the next game without kick out. Burton got the field goal in a very dour affair, right? But the point of the matter is that it just doesn't matter. I've lost my train of thought, thinking of too many things at once. But Hutchison, in my opinion, it's better for him to be there at the start of the season and Sexton to finish it off. Because the last thing I want to see is Drew Hutchison, who's the more experienced, killing it in New South Wales Cup. He's too good for New South Wales Cup. Same with Sexton. They're both are way too good for it. But they're in the bottom 2 or 3 or 4 halfbacks in the comp when you go across every halfback in every squad, right? Or they're in a cluster of the bottom 10, right? Which you can sort of give for and against. And some just need time. Sexton needs time to build combinations. I get it. He already had a bit of a combination there, and I get that as well. He played 5 games at the end of the season. But the last thing I want to see is after 10 rounds, the fans and the media saying it's not working with Sexton because our forwards aren't doing the job. Gus doesn't want these kids going into a side that doesn't have cohesion, that isn't confident. It's just the way it is. It's the way it is. That's how you protect your players. That's how you develop your kids right. And I think Sexton's still at that, he's just above that youngster age. Like he's played, 25, 30 games? First 4 games, he was fantastic for the Gold Coast Titans as a junior, coming into a team that was building some momentum and doing some good things, and then they went on a bit of a run. Won 10 games in a season and made the finals. Unbelievable. Will never happen again to win only 10 games and make the finals. But they made it. And he was a big part in getting them there. And then they gave him the keys, as you said, Paulie, and they won 3 games the next year or something like that. So the last thing I want to see is Sexton being in this team now, which doesn't have any cohesion. You can tell it just doesn't look silky smooth yet. And it will with time. I just think that I would be letting him build confidence with these youngsters like Joe Ash, who went back to Flegg, helped lead them to a premiership, come back when he was called up, great attitude. He didn't make a noise in the New South Wales Cup last year. I didn't hear him talk much at all. I couldn't really see it. But this year in these trials, he hasn't shut up. And you see in the training footage and in the sheds, he's constantly talking. He's trying to be a leader already, which is fantastic. And all these kids are the same. Bailey Haywood, Rajab, even though he got really lost a lot of confidence and learnt why he wasn't being picked. Long story there. Some know about it. But he's still a Bulldog in his heart and wants to play for the Bulldogs. He's going to try and lead that team as well. You got Eli Clark coming through. People don't talk about Hayes Perrin, but he played fullback and he's a talker. So he's going to want to put his best foot forward at the Bulldogs this year to keep his career alive. And that's only going to be good for spots and all that sort of stuff. There's lots of good stuff that can happen in our club. And it's all and that pressure for spots is what it's all about. So what I want to see is Sexton getting his confidence in that team, which I believe is going to do some really good things. They might not win the comp. They may not win every game, but I think you're going to see how good some of that talent is. The likes of Harry Hayes, Lipboy Hopboy, Chris Patolo will get some run through there. And if they can just have some luck with injuries, young Luke Smith, another one, I could just name them all. When they get things rolling, you're going to have some confident players get their opportunity in first grade. And when they bring 1 or 2 of them up, then we'll see. But right now, I think they've brought in that experienced player, Hutchison. I watched what he did against the Dolphins in August last year. I watched that run where he played halfback. He was steady. He actually had a couple of 9 out of 10 games. I haven't seen too many of our sevens do that. I saw Kyle Flanagan have some 9 out of 10 games in defence and some 6 or 7 out of 10 games in attack. But I hadn't seen him dominate both sides of the pill, you know what I mean? And Hutchison is someone who I've seen do that. He had a pretty good forward pack around him. He had some good players outside of him, which does help a half, you know what I mean? So maybe that was a little bit misleading because, there's a player there playing with really good players, which opposition, move to the players they consider more dangerous, and he exploited that. Flanagan was doing that for a whole season before he come to the Dogs. People were hanging off him and he was taking the space. I'm more worried about others in the team. Once they started watching him and watching what he did, he was no attacking threat whatsoever as a runner. Was much better when he got into a dummy half, though. He started doing good things out of there. I will give him that. Joash Papali is ready. So, Mark, Joash Papali is 18 years old and he's not ready yet. Gus, Joash's father and the coaches, right, Mick Potter, they will let Serrato know when he's ready. And Serrato will know anyway. Like, I don't know how many times it has to be said. Joash Papali needs to come in to a team that is confident and knows what it's doing and where it's going. We've just reassembled another roster over the preseason. And until we stop doing that, first grade is no place for these kids to be given baptisms of fire. That isn't what makes players. He'll get in there and he can get in there and have nothing to lose and play a couple of games, sure. Put him in there now and we're just going to destroy another career. I don't know how clearly I can make that. You know, if you understand coaching and development, if you've seen how it worked in our successful teams in the past, we just didn't throw kids in there willy-nilly. Like Benny Barber, in spite of the off-field stuff, what I saw him do on the field was my favourite player to watch coming through. Should have won a premiership in 2012 after that season. He made his debut 4 years prior to that and only had played he played most of the 2011 season, I think 20 games in that. The previous 2 seasons played 3 games and he made his debut in the final round of the season in 2008 when we had no one. We had so many injuries. We're getting flogged 50-0 every week when Sonny Bill left the club. So he can be as ready as he wants. He's not ready. He's not ready at all. He's not seasoned for NRL contact. He's come on as the fresh player in the last 2 trials, and I'm not putting him down at all. I cannot wait. I'm chomping at the bit to see him get his opportunity in NRL. But if you start talking, you talk about that every week, come on. That's ridiculous. Blake Taft has just been signed. We've got Connor Tracy. Stephen Crichton's on heaps of money, as we know. Blake Wilson is a fullback, by the way. And he can pass. He can step. He knows how to marshal a defensive line. I've watched him do it. I watched him do it live, actually. When he was playing for Cairns or whatever they bloody call it, down at the Chook Pen. I've seen it. Anyway, and that's when he was younger. There's a player who's probably more ready. Joash, to me, is a future, not just NRL player, but Origin rep and maybe more. They've got to handle him right. And you want him knocking down the door and kicking Blake Taft out and anyone else in front of him because you just can't leave him out. That's what's got to happen. But not before their time. It's just ridiculous. It's just the most ridiculous discussion even. Anyway. That's right, Paul. He's not weak. Brad, if you're still here, you're probably left by now. But I just found some of those comments a little bit, whatever. I didn't like them very much. But anyway, I like this comment. Joey O'Neill is coming for his spot in the NRL. Joey O'Neill is a 6 or a 7, and he's very good too. Another one we're not talking too much about. How well is Joey going to make the tackles though in this team? How well is he going to combine? You know, how was he going to combine with Taff or Crichton or whoever it is, Hutchison or Sexton? Bailey Biondi-Odo is still there too. And he asked some questions of the defence the other night. This is what I mean. We've got so much, a bottleneck of talent raring to go that are basically a few of them are going to leave. And we have to accept that. The best fullback in the club. Is he just? We haven't watched enough of Blake Taff. Well, look, if potential was a measure, he's got the most potential to be the best fullback in our club and potentially in the competition. But he's not the best fullback in our club right now. He's not proven it. He has not proven it. He's got all the talent in the world, but he hasn't proven it. Hasn't proven it to anyone, including himself. It's just a weird opinion. Hutchison needs to stay in line with the inside man. Not always. They're all running a straight line in defence. It's all about trust. He doesn't need to cover everyone. So what are they supposed? So which is it? Are they supposed to all slide? Are they all supposed to run up at once, or are they supposed to be a staggered line? Because I think you'll find that depending on, it's all about the situation. The ground I'll give Mark is that maybe in that situation it may have been better if he didn't run out with the rest of the team. And the Sharks saw it and exploited it. Maybe that was the wrong play. But the big but is that Pawasa should have been there to make that tackle. End of the story. And maybe Drew should have been there to help. But if Drew doesn't go out, and this is where if he doesn't play to his second rower and Drew doesn't go out and Drew hangs back, and then they get the 2-on-1 into the corner, whose fault is it then? I suppose it's the wingers or the centres. Exploiting the numbers in rugby league, it's such a game. It's so subjective sometimes as well. It's like, let's blame the player. There was one individual that was caught out in that line, and that was Hawasa. And that's what trials are for. He's still getting fit. He's getting his way through, and the fitter he gets, the less often he'll be exploited like that. But I will give some ground. In hindsight, if Drew was there to help, at least gets his arms on the player and helps try and make the tackle. He went through untouched, which was ridiculous. Pawasa wasn't marker. They only had one marker. He was on the right side of the ruck. He wasn't at marker. He was beside the marker. He wasn't in front of the fella playing the ball. So we're having a bit of an argument along the chat. This chat's good. Oh, I've only just got to Pete about an hour later. Pete would have turned off by now. G'day, Peter. Taff isn't going great in the tack. Let's go to there. Yeah, well, I'm looking over the first two trials. I think we done enough to score a lot more points, and I think Taff found the wrong option twice. Like, it didn't cause us any issues. We maintained possession and stuff, but if he sort of passed a little bit later and ran a bit further, or there was one where he needed to find the lead runner, and the other time he needed to go behind, and he went the opposite, and they managed to keep us out. in that first half against the Storm. And to be honest, in that game against the Sharks, stop-start affair, everything was slow, both sides of the field, both teams, nothing crisp, as I said. It just wasn't conducive to good football. No one was really doing their job, essentially, or able to effectively. It's funny though. The outcome, we didn't create many opportunities on left or right edge, and didn't exploit the Sharks. But when you watch the speed of the way it went out and the way it was played and the ruck speed and all that, it just wasn't going to happen anyway. If Hutchison is 7, we don't see the business end of the season. Well, it's easy to make that comment when you know that Hutchison's going to get picked. Very easy comment. I find some comments are like scapegoating. Like, I truly hope he does now. I hope we make the business end of the season. Hutchison's the one leading the way. And I know that you would hope for that too. Maybe. But I really doubt that that's, that's what I mean. The scapegoating of one player in our club always. If it's, it was Ockenbaugh, it was Alamotti, it was Perham, it was Riddell every week. Who else is it? We scapegoat players and think that if we replace that player, it fixes everything. And then when the player comes in to replace them due to injury or whatever else, and we still don't win, it's the coach's fault. Maybe. See, it's easy to be the critic. It's not easy to criticize yourself. People find that difficult, but to criticize others, everyone can do that so fucking easily. Yet act so articulate about it. Fuck me. I find it much harder. I find it more enjoyable just to find what did they do well and where can they improve. Behave yourself, O'Connell. Mate, he's throwing hooks. There's bait everywhere. I need to give Michael a lesson on human emotion and behaviour. Mate, you don't need to give anyone lessons on anything from what I've heard come out of your mouth. I've never seen someone embarrass themselves so much with the things that they type. Give me a lesson in human emotion and behaviour. That's right, we did stand up to him, Paulie. If Nico Hines played that game, we would have got smashed. All the hindsight of it all. In hindsight. Maybe. There was no... Mate, are you on the piss or what? They got 2 line breaks but we missed 55 tackles and had, 11 ineffectives. Yet they got 2 line breaks, so we had no scramble. So how did they not score? Scramble isn't just, okay, so you think scramble is when they make a line break and we all run towards the player with the football and, Stevie Mortimer does the tackle from behind, in cover defence, or the fullback scrambles, or someone gets back in cover. Okay, that's what you mean. You'll find when you're missing tackles in the front and you've got 2 and 3 men covering and coming over and still putting the player down, that's scramble, that's effort. And last season, we weren't seeing enough of it. We're seeing players march 20, 30 metres off post contact with only 2 people in the tackle. or Marnie getting hit one out and then no one being there to put him down. That's what we're talking about, scramble. It's not just cover defence when a line break is conceded. God, there's many ways, man. Like, shit. I just think it's habitual play because the 7 isn't demanding that footy. I think that with the sets we had, for both sides, they were just rucking it off. It was just a grind. And whenever we got position, which we did get a couple of times, it just wasn't enough. There was too many errors that were made, which made it a really stop-start affair. I don't even think we got many kicks or got tackled on the 6th or anything like that. Near their line. There was very few opportunities. Anyway. Talking about Cherry. Oh, Lord, it's windy as well. So, okay, so wind isn't, you can't exploit the wind with kicking. And the wind doesn't make it harder to take balls on the full. Okay. So when they decide which way they're going to run, they don't look at where the wind's blowing and how the weather may be. Okay, mate. Curran had a virus. Hughes got a head knock. Both were taken off after 20. 100%, Pete. I said that earlier on. We had a situation where this is going for ages because I'm so far behind reading the messages because I didn't see them for 20 minutes. Curran had a virus. Hughes got a head knock. Both were taken off after 20. Yep. So Curran played 25 minutes. He came on after 15 because Parra was gassed. We gave up 2 60-metre sets after that try that he didn't get off the line. Not scapegoating him. That's just the reality. He's just not ready yet to play long minutes against that big pack. He was found out. And we looked a lot better when Curran and Hughes were there. Hughes actually only played for like 17, 18 minutes of that game. So if those two play that full match, things change, in my opinion. But there you go. Yeah, I agree, Mark. I think he'll be a good bench player. But it's good to get him out there and seeing what he can do against good forwards like that. Yes, I don't mind Price. Just needs to play 25 good minutes. 100%. 20 minutes isn't going to cut it. He needs to be able to do it for 25. End of the day, boys and girls, it was a trial. We went down by 6 against a team that is a top 8 and had the same side basically for 3 years. Go figure. Well, my last hour and 8 minutes could easily have been summed up in that small paragraph. Thank you, Pete. That's exactly the point. Issue for the Bulldogs is the bloody strength of the competition. That is a big issue for us. And the only way we're going to get better is to allow the team to develop combinations and hopefully start to show some form and have that competition for spots and have all those juniors performing so that we can start to infiltrate them into the team as the team improves and gets things going. Not to sit there and put our youngest players into the side now when it's basically, got so many new players in it. It's just a stupid idea. And that's right, I'm talking to you, champion, Mark. You'll have to come on here one day, and then you can teach me some lessons in human attitude and emotion. They even make the 8 and they should be pushing for titles. No, we went down to the side that was missing Nico Hines and Finucane. Yeah, and we were missing Carraz and a couple others. We didn't have Hughes playing, and Curran hardly played. Where they got full service out of theirs. So I'm not sure. I think that evens up the ledger. That's what I reckon, Paulie. But, it's 2024. We're supposed to win this year. He's the undisputed best forward. He plays in 21s. He gets played against men. Mark, I'm not going to keep answering it. I'll answer it once more. I think Joash and his father know. I think the coaches know who's ready and who's not. So you can keep saying it, but it's just absolute rubbish. He'll be ready when they give him his debut. You think Gus doesn't know how to manage young men and when to bring him through the competition? That's hilarious. You think that? Interesting. Wonder what Nathan Cleary thought. Joash may be ready to play a handful of games this year. Maybe. I'm hoping. I think he'll get a taste at some point. Hopefully, because we've got some origin reps. That's what I'm hoping. They tried him at utility last year, so let's hope he gets a taste and he does well enough, gets no injuries and that sort of thing. He's got a long career ahead of him. He's only 18. And to me, he's not the physical specimen that Fittler was at that time. He's not Joseph Suoliti. He plays a different position. And, he's not the same body shape as those guys. It's a bit smaller. And, he'll do his apprenticeship. And when his apprenticeship's done, he'll come into our team and hopefully never look back. Those kids came up and towered up the sunny coast last week, and we want to throw them to the wolves. 100%. Mark, you're dreaming. He's 18. He's not ready just yet. In time, I would agree. Taff will come good, and you have Tracy coming in. Trust me, you won't see him just yet. I'm talking about just one. We need some old dog grunt, Sam Cassio, Greg Eastwood, or Frank Pritchard. I agree. G'day, Ross. And when is he playing a Roosters jersey? What will you say then? Well, Mark, you obviously you ignore history. That's all I'm going to say. The idea, what is it? What do they say? It's insanity to keep doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. Let's just keep putting our juniors throwing them into the deep end, into a side that's not performing well or not even really competing well enough. Until they're doing that, Joash needs to stay the fuck away from first grade. Right? Do you really want Joash to play in a side which can't defend the ruck? So you're pointing out all these deficiencies. Do you really want him to be in a team right now? Is he going to change our fortunes? When he's getting smashed trying to bring it off his own line every I shouldn't even have to explain this. Hilarious. That's right, Paulie. Sexton's only 22. Look, he's nearly the same age as the Burtons and the Crichtons. He's only 1 or 2 years behind. So maybe we will see. We'll see how he goes. I just want to make sure that team has just got some cohesion, a bit of trust about itself. I know the fullback's a very important position. I know the halfback's an important position, and they do need that preseason. They need that time. But they went with Hutchison. He's been doing the majority of the work in the A squad. So they've got to give him that chance. if he's throwing balls out on the full, if he's missing tackles, which he wasn't, he did so much clean-up work. Yet I think the comment was that his defence was poor. Oh, that's what I mean. But there was nothing about, there's nothing about some other players like Wilson who dropped the ball 4 times. Poor kid. But still kept running hard. I love Blake Wilson. Might be the best one, mate, but he's not going anywhere. Wink, wink. That's right, Pete. Trust in the process, Mark. He's the next Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, and I'm very concerned about losing him. Well, all I can say is that if players, I don't even know what to say about it. It's a fair concern to have. The Roosters seem to knock on people's door when they're unearthing talent. But our club now is selfless. The players are selfless. The players want to play for Canterbury. Joe Ash is a Canterbury junior. He wants to play for the Dogs and no one else. I know that. But they're not going to look a gift horse in the mouth either. So I agree on that point. If he gets offered unrealistic money for us, well, that just won't fit in with the club ethos that they're going forward with. But luckily, he's not like that. They're going to take good care of Joe Ash. They already are, and he'll just do his best. He'll keep leading from the front in New South Wales Cup. If he's got to go back to flag for whatever reason, he'll do it. And he will represent himself and his family and our club brilliantly until he gets his opportunity, and then the club will, see the best of him, and so will the fans. Forward set it up, backs finish it off. 100% Ross. We need the big. How big are you, Ross? Are you ready to go? I think, you couldn't be much worse than bloody some of the people we've been linked to. Imagine Joey O'Neill with Ola Kawatu running at him 12 times a game. 100%, Paulie. Give him a chance to develop. Oh, they've played against men. New South Wales Cup is full of kids. They probably want to play against men. There's more men in the Queensland Cup. That's why Bennett and Bellamy love it so much, and that's why we've made a link with the Clydesdales. And we'll start to see more and more players get fed from up here down to Sydney eventually. Yeah, Pete. You won't repeat that there's not enough talent in the forwards. The talent's there, it's just not seasoned, mate. That's it. And the players that they've invested in, like Patolo, just keep getting injured. G'day, champion. How you going, Jay, Bulldog supporter? I've been watching some of your stuff. It's really good stuff, mate. Keep it up. Well, educate on why some signings have a detrimental effect on a roster. Well, educate me that, look, I know it creates a big, massive headache for your brain, Mark, when this has become a big debate. It's great. When there's a lot of players that can play a lot of different positions, and then you got juniors coming through. The problem is we haven't had the depth in the halves. We haven't had the depth in the spine positions for so long. And that's been a massive issue for us. We were sitting there a couple of years ago going, it's got to be Meaney at fullback. No, it's got to be Hopewade. And then they brought in DWZ, who just tried his heart out so much that he just made a lot of mistakes. Played 100 miles an hour, kept stuffing up. It's just... But where were the juniors coming through at fullback? Credence Toya come through, he looked likely. Still struggling to get a go. Which would tell you there's some issues there. Wouldn't it? I think the people that have a detrimental effect on our club is when you give someone an opportunity and then when they don't get picked, or when current people are in the club start, saying that they deserve to be picked and they don't know why they're not being picked, and they start yapping their trap. That's what's detrimental to a roster. Our roster is out of balance in the forwards, yes, but it's not through a lack of trying. We have been linked to a lot of players, and they just have not been able to get them. And it's pretty hard when, the Sharks have got three or four of their best forwards coming off contract over the last year and this year, and they've been managed to keep them all and give them all more money. That doesn't make sense to me. But they will have a couple that'll have to be off contract. Kafusi, Hazelton, and that young fella, I really like the look of him. But how long is he going to last? That big tall boy, number 18. Sign him up, Gus. How's Averillo going? He looked pretty good for the Dolphins. Are we going to talk about Lament Averillo? Is Averillo, is it Jonathan Thurston we're talking about now as well? I wish Averillo all the best. He's been coming off the bench at the Dolphins. Might tell you something. We have a gap in our juniors. There aren't guys ready right now to come up. The ones we have are a year or two off. We need to bring experience in to take pressure off the young fellas. 100% Jado. A really good response to the people saying we need to bring these youngsters through now. Pete, Mark can come on only if you come on as well, because I reckon by the end of it, it probably won't make for very good viewing. Well, this has been a lot of fun. An hour and 20 minutes. I can't believe it's gone that quickly. I'm going to give you my side. So let's look at thanks a lot, Mark. I enjoyed the banter, mate. Same with you, Brad. I don't mind a bit of banter, mate. Doesn't bother me at the end of the day. Paulie, thanks again for your contribution. Champion and Big Pete, well done. And Pete Bulldogs, loving your stuff, mate. And nice to meet people such as, sorry, I've forgotten your names. Jado, Ross Palmer, JB Bulldogs. Thanks for tuning in. It's been fantastic. So let's look at the team that I think they're going to name round one, barring injury. So I'll get this side that was up before. Where's the players? Team lists. So I think Taff will definitely start at fullback round one. I think Jacob Carraz will be on the right edge. And I think Bronson Cherry is going to get the start now, which I was completely wrong about. I thought he'd take time, but I felt he's done enough. He handled the contact. He kept making meters. He just did the tough stuff. Didn't make many mistakes at all. And, I think there might be some times there he'll have a flat spot and he'll be under pressure and he'll have a misread, miss a tackle. But, we just got to persevere now. He's there. Crichton will start on the left edge with Josh Addo-Carr. And I think they'll go with Burton and Hutchison. The props, I think, will start with Max King, Reed Marnie. I'm not sure if Palasa will get the gig. I'm still not discounting Liam Knight. Might start in round one. I'm yet to hear how they went in New South Wales Cup as far as the individual performances and that sort of thing. They lost to the Sharks Newtown, or the Newtown team, which is the Sharks side, basically. I think it is. Well, they might have changed. No, that's North Sydney changed to, I think North Sydney might have went to the Storm or something. Newtown's still with the Sharks. I think that'll be about our back row. We may even see Curran come in. So I'm just not sold on what's going to happen there. I know I said I was going to give my team, but I don't know. It could be Kawasa, could be Curran, or it could be Leon Knight. Kurt Mann will start 14. Samuel Hughes, I think, starts on the bench. And he makes a difference when he comes on. And it won't be long before he's starting the game. And I think Curtis may have done enough. Kidione could put himself in the picture. I don't think so, though, yet. But he does. He looks bigger, and he did some nice big hits. Only had one hit up with the footy when he come on. They got some good miles into Villiami's legs. He played longer than Preston. So I think Toby's going to start in the New South Wales Cup. It'll be interesting to see where they go with the halves there. I think Joey O'Neill's still eligible for Flegg. So we might see him, if Flegg starts the same time as Cup, we might see him start in Flegg. Because I think we will have Bailey will start on the bench. Jake Turpin will either, one of them will be hooker, the other one will be on the bench. And the halves, I do believe, will be Sexton and young Bailey Biondi-Odo. I think they'll be your half and 5'8". Eli Clark will be one of the centres. And I think Connor Tracy will be the other centre. Harry Hayes will play on an edge or off the bench. So, fair bit happening there. Not going to be too many changes here. I think Blake Wilson, very unlucky not to get a start. But they either decide to go with Blake on the wing and bring Carraz into the centres, or Bronson stays there and Carraz replaces Wilson. That's the only change that's going to happen to the back seven for round one against Parra. It looks like Sivo's going to be out suspended in round one, so that's an interesting development. He always causes us problems there. It's going to be a really good lineup. I think it'll be a similar sort of opposition as what the Sharks have got, except they'll be more full strength in their halves. So there you go. Anyone else said hello? So Mark's still here. He's a 100% Jodo. Let's sign some 33-year-olds. Well, that's nice, mate. Love you too, Mark. It just seems whatever the club does, though, Mark's got a problem with it. Did Gus Gould, get your missus or something one day or something? Is he married to the love of your life or something, Mark? What happened there, mate? He must have done something to you in a previous life. Jaden Brayley. G'day, Jaden. I like your podcast, mate. Enjoy it. I feel like Curran will come on as a front rower, but still use his ball playing. Seems Salmon and Mann will share the lock duties. I love watching what James Graham did in that. I love watching what James Graham did on that Josh Curran preview. You could just see how he gets in behind the ruck, uses his speed, creates overlaps, and that's on top of all the effort stuff that he does. And overall, will be a mainstay at the Dolphins. I think he will. Look, I picked him to be their fullback at some point. I think he'll go to fullback before Farnworth. And I think the Dolphins will be a better defensive side with the hammer in the centres. And, with Jake behind that forward pack, And with that back line, there's a lot of good shit he can do there. If only he had a forward pack at the Bulldogs. Crows won't play NRL round 1. Why is that? So you said Crichton was playing fullback and Toby was the 7, when I was sort of trying to tell you that it wasn't happening because Toby was in the second group most of the time. I think sometimes, Mark, you just got to listen. When someone gives you the heads up, just accept that they might be telling you something that they know about. But hey, maybe Toby might still start 7. Like, he's my pick. He's been my pick since he come to the club. I've always liked Toby, and I think he will be. He's the 7 in our best 17 for 2024, no doubt. But that's not the issue at play here. Keep it real, bro. Just keep it real. Keeping it real is a very subjective matter, because when you're talking about kids should be playing against adults when they're not proven, doesn't sound like you're keeping it real. It sounds like you're smoking the green stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. Legalise it. I wish I could smoke the green stuff. I really do. But anyway, guys, I got through all your messages. Took me 90 minutes. I didn't realise I was going to go for that long. Thanks for tuning in, everyone who has. I've really enjoyed it. I'll have to get a few of you on here on a live stream, actual see your faces. But Mark can come on as long as Pete comes on as well, because, I don't want to upset Mark too much. He needs to understand that the algorithm's everything. Alrighty. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Sorry, just the last thing before we all go. The plan. The plan of this Bulldogs team is to develop these kids and have them infiltrate over the next couple of years. And they need to make sure they've got experienced people in there, just as was said on one of the comments, to try and get a couple of those signings in the key areas that they need, and to make sure that when they bring those kids through, that they're not just handing them to the Wolves, that they've actually got a team which is competing hard, which is working hard, that it is committed, that understands what they're doing, in a club where they're all united and moving in the same direction. That's the plan. And we've seen the players that have left the club are the ones that flap their traps, the ones that, ask questions as to why they weren't getting picked, that wanted more money, whatever it was. It wasn't just because they weren't good enough, or that the coaches thought that, there were better players than them. It's coming down to what they want these kids to see in front of them. They don't want a leader where a kid comes up to them and says that training's too hard, and the leader sort of agrees with them. They want the leader to set the example, and that's what our club's trying to do, because that's how it was done under Peter Moore. People didn't go and question Steve Folkes as to why they weren't getting picked. They just worked harder and forced him to pick him, and nothing's going to change. We've had all these people. It's just been this toxic environment. There's been too many young kids and too many leaders in our team that haven't led and have been, when you got Remus Smith sitting there having his manager dictate that he wants to play centre or he's leaving, Alamotti, after a couple of good games last year, rejecting an offer for an extension and saying, and then going to the media and having it come out that he's looking for a 4-year deal and the Cowboys are interested. All this bullshit. I'm calling it. That's real. That's keeping it real. The club doesn't want anything to do with these players, and whether they go on and succeed elsewhere, good luck to them. They've all got families, and not everyone is going to fail just because they've raised a concern or believe that they were worth more than what they could get at Canterbury. It's nothing to do with that. But the club wants the culture to make sure that everyone buys in, that everyone shares and celebrates everyone else's successes, even if they're not quite meeting their own goals. And that's what it appears to be. That's what the proof in the pudding's about. And there's no selfless acts anymore. There's no more Tavitas in the team. There's no more of that. That's what I think. Sounds like I'm in denial. Mate, you're the only person that we can lose a trial and you can, at the start of a season, and you can link it back to being Gus Gould's fault. No, there's a few of you. But that's all right, because I'll tell you something now. If you were to get your wish and Gus Gould died tomorrow, and that's been a bit nasty and a bit hectic, but if that was your wish, mate, and that happened, and then the board got overthrown, what do you think happens to all those kids that have their faith in Gus, who's made them these commitments on his side of the table, and they've got to make the commitments on their side? What do you think happens to all them? Do you just think it's business as usual? What I see happening is what's happening for the last 5 years. These kids start saying, I can get for $500,000 if I go here. They've promised me a first grade spot there. You need to give me more money. And then we're paying people like we're paying Alamotti $300,000 and $250,000 a season before they'd even got near the first grade sky. So if you want more of that, let's keep this rhetoric, this Buzz Rothfield rhetoric going. That's all I can say. Anyway, I'll catch you on the flip side, mate. Thanks for tuning in and making this very interesting. And thanks for all the viewers that have tuned in. Very, very happy. But I'm going to end it there. That's the plan. And don't worry about our attack. Sorry, I said I was going to talk about that. It was one of those games. Our attack will get better. For me, on Mark's point, the A and B defenders making sure that the opposition don't get behind our ruck is a much more important thing than a clunky attack at this stage. We get that defence right, the attack will come. Every season, you watch those Panthers struggle with attack at the start of the season, and eventually they just, they start rolling. And that's the good sides know how to defend, and we don't know how to defend yet. And when we show that and do that, that's when we'll worry about our attack. Take care, guys. Go the Dogs.